Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning in to News 9 Live. India's coal rush, that is what we're going to be focusing on, and the need to be wary of not hurting sustainable development and growth goals. A slippery slope, if I may. Well, the coal ministry had earlier announced that the government has fixed a target of 1.31 billion tons of coal production for financial year 2024-25, adding that the same will go up to 1.5 billion tons by the financial year 2030. Now, this comes at a time when India's domestic coal production has increased by over 16% in the previous financial year. From April 2022 to January 2023, India produced 698.25 million tons of coal against 601.97 million tons during the same period previous year. Now, Coal India Limited, the world's largest coal miner, has said that the quantum leap in the year was a whopping 8 million tons. It said that the added output was 107.3% of the target that was set. But what about the pressure the West is putting on India and the developing countries? With greater installed power generating capacity and way higher per capita energy consumption, it wants the developing countries to phase out coal by 2040. But even as the West is blaming coal for climate change, India is betting big on this particular fossil fuel, with the country's own power demand set to quadruple in the next 20 years. So how challenging will it be to balance coal needs and renewable energy plans? Is India's net zero 2070 target achievable? If not coal, then what? It's half our consumption. Is it going to be nuclear? Is it going to be solar? Let's not forget, it's the G20 year. And when it comes to energy security, how can India lead the way? Is India's approach right? We'll answer all those questions, all those intriguing questions. We have with us the person, the journalist behind the story, and we also have with us an expert on the panel. But before that, News 9 Plus's documentary on the same issue, Coal Rush, a snippet of the documentary, and we'll come back to take more questions. On March 20, 2023, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change warned member states they were not doing enough to limit global warming. Phase out coal by 2040, appealed United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres.
No new coal, and the phasing out of coal by 2030 in OECD countries and 2040 in all other countries.
Fossil fuels like coal, gas and oil emit carbon dioxide. This stays in the atmosphere longer than other greenhouse gases like methane. The world used more than 8,000 million tons of coal in the year 2022. Its emission traps heat in the Earth's atmosphere and raises temperatures.
India has been consistently advocating that we move away completely from fossil fuels, not just identifying coal as one of the villains in this case. And this stand was, so to say, raised by India at the COP. But then the developed economies did not sign. Now, the good thing is that the UN also has, so to say, vindicated its India's stand by saying that this is the right approach to go.
India's installed power generation capacity is more than 4 lakh megawatt. This includes fossil and non-fossil fuels. Of this, almost half is coal. The remaining sources of energy include hydropower, lignite, gas, diesel, wind, solar, and nuclear.
We consumed about 697 million tons in the power sector. I'm not talking about coal for all the other sectors, which was over 1,000 million tons last year. Up to 2030 will be, the power sector will consume about 990 million tons or so.
India should actually, not only sustain its coal production, but grow it. And I'm happy to tell you that India is exactly doing that. It is growing its production, and it has set some ambitious targets. And what is interesting is that now there is a plan to actually export coal by 2026. So that's extremely on track when it comes to looking at the coal policy in this country.
India's energy demand is going to quadruple over the next 20 years. And it cannot rely on a variable source of generation like REs.
You have sun, which shines only for a few hours in the day. Similarly, wind blows only at certain times of the year and certain time of the day. We do have some amount of hydro, but it cannot take. Hydro also has its limitations in terms of environmental issues. So we have to depend on coal.
West has made a lot of strong economic growth by using cheaper fossil fuels then. But now I think this whole demand of just phasing out coal and not phasing out of all fossil fuels has been very unjust and unfair to the developing countries who are relying more on coal.
They are a lot dependent on natural gas. And there is assumption that natural gas pollutes lesser than coal. When you mine natural gas, it's still a fossil fuel. It still emits carbon dioxide. And I said extraction of fossil fuel emits a lot of methane into the atmosphere, which is a very potent greenhouse gas.
Well, other incisive analysis and cutting-edge documentaries on the NEWS9 Plus application as well. You can download it from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. It's the world's first news OTT. But coming back to the cold rush, Nivedita Khandekar, Senior Associate Editor for NEWS9 Plus, joining me here in the studio. And also with us on the broadcast is Vibhuti Garg, Director, South Asia for Institute for Energy, Economics and Financial Analysis. Vibhuti, very warm welcome on the broadcast. You know, we just heard your particular statement as part of the documentary. We're talking about how the West is acting sort of hypocritical. But when we're looking at the developing countries, and India is a part of that particular group, and our reliance on coal, do you think our power demand that is going to quadruple in the next 20 years is going to hurt our chances of balancing sustainable development?
Thanks for having me here. With respect to your question, I think India is following a mixed approach, rather following an all kind of fuels approach, wherein after COVID-19, and especially I would say after the Russia-Ukraine war, all the major economies which are witnessing demand growth, there's a natural instinct to turn inward and look at more fuels which are domestically available. So India has huge possession, it has huge potential as well for coal, and that is one of the big reasons that when there was a fuel supply crunch, so India started looking at increasing its domestic coal production to meet its growing energy demand. So India has very huge high energy demand as well. So it's not only the existing demand, but year on year we are witnessing very high energy demand. And if you look at electricity demand alone, we have in the last 1 year we witness about 6 to 7% growth in electricity. But at the same, there is a push for coal, but India is increasingly looking at promoting more and more clean energy sources, and specifically renewable energy, along with other flexible generation sources like using of pumped hydro, and also looking at as soon as there's more commercial viability of battery storage, so they are going to deploy that to meet more demand, which is much more stable and not just like in intermittent power. India has come out with a lot of schemes, including production-linked incentive schemes to boost domestic manufacturing. Further, given that wind was not picking up in the last few years because of the reverse auction bidding mechanism, the government is coming up with another pricing mechanisms to promote more and more wind, and especially offshore wind, given that there are huge land constraints as well in the country. And the way India is approaching is to kind of reduce imports across the value chain. So that's why there's a lot of push in in putting up capacities for solar module cells and even polysilicon. So they're putting a big bet on clean energy as well, and as part of its NDC, India has committed that it's gonna provide 50% of capacity through non-fossil fuel sources and reduce its emission intensity by 45% by 2030 from the 2005 levels. So big plans on clean energy as well, and which is on the right path. So I think there's a big push for clean energy too.
And at the same time, what about the pressure the West is putting on the developing countries and India as well, the pressure coming from the United Nations as well? It's a G20 year. India has the presidency. How can India take this, forward, not just for the Southeast Asian bloc, but really become an example for the globe?
Yeah, so I think India is, if you will remember, even at COP27, India made a demand that the West should not be only looking at phasing out of, coal, but of all fossil fuel sources. Because clearly it's not just about coal, even, the way the global temperatures are rising, and if we have to really limit temperatures to 1.5 degrees and for different countries to achieve net zero as well, we really need to phase out all fossil fuels. And while there is a lot of pressure on the developing economies, because they are the ones, where more coal is available, whereas in the West, they have burned a lot of coal in the past and have contributed to this whole global warming crisis. And now even gas to an extent is, is contributing to emissions, and especially the methane emission. So India is very rightly demanding to phase out of all fossil fuels and not just coal. So yes, there is some level of hypocrisy where the Western world wants to continue with, using of more and more gas, whereas putting a lot of pressure on emerging economies to put down coal.
All right. Nivedita, across your reportage, and first and foremost, congratulations on a really well-done documentary piece as well. Why do you think, when we're looking at 1.31 billion tons production in the coming year as well, why do you think in the contemporary time, in today's day and age, India's coal rush warranted a story? How did you come about this particular piece?
Well, this was in the work since the COP ended last year. And somehow we were planning and going ahead. As Vibhuti just pointed out, that at that time when COP ended, India was blamed for certain usage of words, and we were insisting that the West and the developed countries should be phasing out all fossil fuels and not just coal. And that hypocrisy thing we thought we should highlight. At the same time, we also thought we need to point out why India is rushing with coal, even as it is aiming at larger renewable energy mix. Because renewable energy panning out is taking a little time for multiple reasons. So it's, a done thing to set things in context that, okay, look, we are saying we are going to phase out coal. We are saying we are increasing renewable energy. But right now we need coal. Right now we need to meet the aspirations of so many people in the country. Almost 70% of rural India, they have these aspirational needs. All the industry, economy that is on the rise, they need power. Everybody needs power. So by the time our renewables are in place, say by 2030 we have committed, we'll have 500 gigawatts of non-fossil fuel energy. So by the time it's in place, we still need to cater to our people's need. So the rush, basically.
Absolutely. Vibhuti, resonating from what Nivedita here is talking about, there was a piece that was done by Associated Press that spoke about how it's going to take $900 billion to, go cold turkey or quit coal when it comes to India. Now we're looking at record growth, and those numbers seem, really great, something to be proud of. But at the same time, how bad are these record numbers? On the Libra scales, the positive and the negative. When we're looking at the negatives, is it going to be irreparable, irreversible damage?
Many coal-dependent states are preparing themselves to phase down. I won't say phase out is a possibility for India now in the next few years, as Nivedita very rightly pointed out, because we are sitting on a big coal usage. In the electricity sector alone, we have about 210, 211 gigawatt of coal and lignite-based capacity. So to phase out is not an option in the next few years, but definitely phase down is something India is looking at. They have retired some of their old coal plants, and even coal mines which are anyways very loss making, and there's hardly any good coal available there. So that is happening, and in fact a lot of states, in Jharkhand is one of the progressive state which has set up a task force to help state prepare themselves for the next few years, when they are gonna phase down usage of coal in their state, where coal is one of the big source of revenue for them. So I think things are progressing very well, and especially the coal-rich states are taking a lot of initiative and step to meet their energy requirement. At the same time, look at the requirements of their people who are dependent on coal for their earnings. So how do you reskill, repurpose of the land, as well as of reskilling of the people as well. So a lot of efforts are happening, and hopefully the transition will happen, but there'll be some hiccups, but hopefully with all the support that the government is looking at, because this would require even a huge amount of investment, huge amount of financing, which may not be entirely met through domestic capital alone. And even within both domestic and international capital, it's not only the grants that are being looked at, but so many other sources of financing, especially the private capital, will also have to play a much larger role in helping states and even the urban local bodies, and that's where India as a whole will be able to transition.
Well, Vibhuti, across my research, I also chanced upon some, coal mines being auctioned, and how serious that particular business is. I mean, after the IPL auction, I think the next auction that is looked at seriously is the coal mining auction. Hundreds of coal mines being set up for auction. But when we're looking at, exporting coal, there was a part in the documentary where India is now looking towards exporting coal as well. So again, great on the trade and commerce front, but aren't we quite literally adding fuel to the fire?
Absolutely. If you'll see, while there was an intention and there was a lot of coal mines that were auctioned, but there was a very lukewarm response. So there were only very few players who were interested, and that too for their own captive projects, and because they are setting up some capacities, or even to reduce reliance on their CIL coal. They could better manage costs by having those mines in place, given a lot of times there is huge coal shortage, less of mining shortage, but more because of transportation shortage. So on the other hand, while there might be a lot of intent, raising financing for such projects is becoming an increasing problem. Especially when you are looking at ESG capital, which is, looking at the progress or looking at where the money is being invested. And none of especially the international capital is ready to invest in such high emitting technology. So going forward, there have been a lot of banks and financial institutions who have announced their coal and gas exit policies. Given this kind of a situation, while there might be an interest, but raising financing, raising the debt part for developing these projects is very, very difficult. So yeah.
Pertinent points raised there by Vibhuti Garg. Nivedita, across your reportage, some really nice shots visually in the documentary, and also the voices that have been used, the talking heads in the, on the documentary in particular, have very nicely compared where India stands in terms of China's per capita energy consumption, and the United States is as well. But across your reportage, what are some interesting things that you found that really turned your own head, that wow, I mean, this is something that's really new to me?
Not exactly new, but very interesting. 2 points which I thought we could highlight, and while speaking with expert, those points were made by the expert. One was, as you rightly said, about the comparison of per capita emission. Not many people across the globe, like forget just India, even across the globe, when they call India as a polluter, they don't know that India's per capita emission, per capita, per requirement, they are way below the world average. And whereas US, even other countries and even China, they are far ahead and far over than the global averages. So that was one thing which India has been highlighting at global platforms, but the common people sort of don't know. They just know that, oh, okay, they have such a polluting case and they call India as third largest emitter and all that. But the per capita consumption of power, per capita emissions are really less. We are like way below. Second interesting thing, again it was highlighted by an expert, was how there are those ground level problems in implementation of renewable energy. So even as we are banking big on renewable energy, we have certain problems when it comes to implementation. For instance, the power discoms are a bit reluctant when it comes to offering subsidized rooftop solar connections to residential areas, because they think their revenues would be affected.
The profit margin is going to be affected.
Yeah. Second, we have a large scale land availability issue. So it was not exactly highlighted in the documentary, but that is a known thing which came out, that because of the land availability issue, we are looking at upscaling. And then that upscaling may be affected because of the land availability is one. And second is, of course, the environmental issues that may crop up while implementing the renewable energy sector.
Well, Vibhuti, you know, it's interesting what Nivedita is talking about here. When capitalist reflex comes into play, there is no room for social development or social welfare. But again, looking at the target for 2070, if not coal for India, which is half our energy consumption, then what next? Nuclear, solar? I mean, there are limitations as well. A gentleman in the documentary rightly points out, the wind only blows in a particular direction at a particular speed during a particular time of the day. The sun only shines bright for a couple of hours. What next for India? What do we turn towards?
I think definitely renewable energy is intermittent and it's not available throughout the day, but both wind and solar can complement each other. So wind is available in the evening hours, sun is available during the day, so they complement each other very well. And if we are able to crack this commercial viability of battery storage, which is the short duration storage, and build some more pumped hydro storage. So together they can, meet most of the incremental demand. But however, as Nivedita pointed out very rightly, it's gonna put a lot of constraint on the land, because land requirements would be huge. So there's a lot of discussion happening of, when we are closing down of coal mines or coal power plants, using the same land for more renewable energy deployment. So that's a lot is being discussed, and hopefully we'll see a lot happening using the same land for renewable energy deployment. Also, increasingly offshore wind and floating solar would be something to again address the land constraint problem. Or also the decentralized renewable energy, which is your solar rooftop. So gradually, while we move from decentralized to more centralized system of serving an electricity demand, I think again the way going forward would also be to meet large amounts of demand through decentralized renewable energy. If there's a way we can promote more and more solar rooftop, both with the CNI, which is the commercial and industrial consumers, as well as the residential consumers, that would be something which will address some of these concerns going forward. So that's for the electricity. Yeah. So I think...
Absolutely. Vibhuti, I'm going to put you on the spot here. We're running out of time. Just one last question. Target 2070. Give me a pragmatic answer, not an optimistic one. Is it achievable?
It is achievable. It's a very long timeline with more and more technology innovation, with more, I would say, prices going down in a downward trajectory. We will see, accelerating use of more clean energy sources going forward.
All right. Well, on that note, it has been a riveting conversation. Well, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Vibhuti Garg, Director, South Asia for Institute of Energy Economics and Financial Analysis. Many thanks for joining with us and helping us out with your insightful inputs.
Thank you.
Nivedita, it's a great documentary. I'm going to again urge all the viewers to go out there and check her documentary out on the News9 Plus application. It's called Coal Rush, India's coal rush. The demand is set to quadruple in the next 20 years. Where does that place India, and how confident should India need to be when it comes to their own energy security requirements? In the end, we can always hope that good sense prevails. Many thanks for joining us here on News9 Live. Content continues. Don't go anywhere. On March 20, 2023, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change warned member states they were not doing enough to limit global warming. Phase out coal by 2040, appealed United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres.
No new coal, and the phasing out of coal by 2030 in OECD countries and 2040 in all other countries.
Fossil fuels like coal, gas and oil emit carbon dioxide. This stays in the atmosphere longer than other greenhouse gases like methane. The world used more than 8,000 million tons of coal in the year 2022. Its emission traps heat in the Earth's atmosphere and raises temperatures.
India has been consistently advocating that we move away completely from fossil fuels, not just identifying coal as one of the villains in this case. And this stand was, so to say, raised by India at the COP. But then the developed economies did not sign. Now, the good thing is that the UN also has, so to say, vindicated its India's stand by saying that this is the right approach to go.
India's installed power generation capacity is more than 4 lakh megawatt. This includes fossil and non-fossil fuels. Of this, almost half is coal. The remaining sources of energy include hydropower, lignite, gas, diesel, wind, solar, and nuclear.
We consumed about 697 million tons in the power sector. I'm not talking about coal for all the other sectors, which was over 1,000 million tons last year. Up to 2030 will be, the power sector will consume about 990 million tons or so.
India should actually, not only sustain its coal production, but grow it. And I'm happy to tell you that India is exactly doing that. It is growing its production, and it has set some ambitious targets. And what is interesting is that now there is a plan to actually export coal by 2026. So that's extremely on track when it comes to looking at the coal policy in this country.
India's energy demand is going to quadruple over the next 20 years. And it cannot rely on a variable source of generation like REs.
You have sun, which shines only for a few hours in the day. Similarly, wind blows only at certain times of the year and certain time of the day. We do have some amount of hydro, but it cannot take. Hydro also has its limitations in terms of environmental issues. So we have to depend on coal.
West has made a lot of strong economic growth by using cheaper fossil fuels then. But now I think this whole demand of just phasing out coal and not phasing out of all fossil fuels has been very unjust and unfair to the developing countries who are relying more on coal.
They are a lot dependent on natural gas. And there is assumption that natural gas pollutes lesser than coal. When you mine natural gas, it's still a fossil fuel. It still emits carbon dioxide. And I said extraction of fossil fuel emits a lot of methane into the atmosphere, which is a very potent greenhouse gas.
I submit, my lord, that the prayers that I respectfully seek from your lordships are affirmative steps which will help me lead a dignified life like any other person. Then, my lord, then your lordship may see only one more.
The last 4 lines of the Constitution.
Yes, my lord, I'll read it.
Principle, yeah.
Yes. Sorry, my lord, I should have read
51.7.
I should have read
564. 564.
What was they reading? After the first step, the constitutional principles on which it is based have application to a broader range of entitlements. The Indian Constitution is based on the abiding faith in the constitutional values. In the march of civilizations across spectrum of compassionate global order, India cannot be left behind. We have to at least go hand in hand with Nepal. Let's forget anything else. We are in this region. Let's not talk about the America. In the US also, a large part of the society is very conservative. Large part. That's why, my lord, you had this DOMA and this, that. And the fact that now in the recent past, they have gone back, my lord, on abortions. They have gone back on abortions. It's not as if that, my lord, being a industrialized country, they are very much ahead. The entire South, the rednecks as they call themselves, they are conservative.
After Obergefell, they have.
So after Obergefell, it has been accepted, and they have passed an act now. I mentioned that.
Opinion changes.
So things change when the moral authority of an institution says that this is how, please, you look through this prism of gender neutrality. Do not look through the prism. Sorry to go back. This Victorian morality issue, my lord, came in 1800s when, my lord, Mr. Macaulay framed this law. You go back to Indian text for hundreds of years, my lord, you go to Khajuraho, go to other places. You see, my lord, these acts are depicted on the walls for thousands of years. That remained, my lord, the concept of morality. It was not, my lord, this Victorian morality which was in India for 1,000 years. Our morality was very, very different, far more advanced, not Victorian, not stereotyped, not stigmatized in this form, not, my lord, this formal thing. You can go to so many places and see. But when, my lord, it changed, we have had a succession from, my lord, Lodi dynasty. Lodi Gardens, my lord, dynasty, 1,000 years old. Then came, my lord, the Mughal dynasty in the 1500s when Babur came. Then came the British. They occupied India. They imposed, my lord, their code and their moralities. So the society has travelled, my lord, through, my lord, twisting, if I may say so, twisting sands of time. What we were thousands of years ago, what we were, my lord, in the Mughal period, what we were, my lord, in the British period, and that British period stuck because they made the laws. They conquered India. India became one, my lord, dominion, like Africa, like many other dominions. We became a dominion, and those laws were imposed on us. Those Victorian morals were imposed. I am not on a debate, my lord, what is right, what is wrong. But that is how the shifting sands of time have, my lord, gone over thousands of years. That's why these words are important. That in the march, my lord, in this march, India can't be left behind. And more so, my lord, at least we don't have a debate like England. They don't have, my lord, a written constitution. So it's a matter of debate what the conventions are or what they are not. We have a written constitution like the US. Our constitution is very, very clear. And this, my lord, golden thread, if I may use again, my lord, the preamble 14, 15, 16, 19 and 21 is now cast in stone by several judgments of this court on secularism, pluralism, constitutional morality, no right, my lord, of the heterogeneous majority to steamroll the minority. And in the recent past, we start from Nalsa. I can go back, my lord, to a large number of judgments. But then that debate, my lord, will unnecessarily go on. You don't need that because there is no discordant note. Wherever there was a discordant note, my lord, your lordships have corrected. MP Sharma had a discordant note. And MP Sharma is of the 50s and 60s, my lord. Your lordships have corrected. My lord, the Chief Justice, my lord, also corrected. ADM Jabalpur. It's a discordant note. One discordant note, MP Sharma, another discordant note. They have been corrected by this court. So, my lord, this court has proceeded in the last 70 years, by and large, on one track, upholding the values of the Constitution, talking about constitutional morality, talking about the fact that if one man, my lord, is discriminated, he can come to the Supreme Court, notwithstanding that, my lord, hundreds and crores stand one way. One man has the right to come to this court and he need not wait for Parliament. Because this court is the guarantor, my lord, and the protector of fundamental rights. The lordships have said repeatedly. Repeatedly. I mean, you don't need to cite cases on that. So if that is, my lord, the position, and India has to go forward, this court takes the lead with its moral authority and legal authority in providing a declaration saying that this is the next step after 377. Look, Mr. Society, this is the norm. Follow this norm. Remove the dogma. Remove the stigma. That is why, my lord, your lordship said, give wide publicity. That's not normally, your lordship don't say that normally. The reason is you are dealing, my lord, with something which is a little out of the normal. It's not, my lord, a case of property or, my lord, money going here or something. It's not one of those cases. It's a very different case. So the obligations, my lord, rest heavily on this court because of its moral authority and the public confidence in the court, more than, my lord, the legal part. Now, my lord, para 600 is very important. Kindly turn to para 600 and 601. And then, my lord, 2-3 more paras, then we are done with this. And the last para of Justice Indu Malhotra, which I will read, my lord, that we owe an apology, etc. But, my lord, para 600. Constitutional morality requires in a democracy the assurance of certain minimum rights which are essential for free existence to every member of society. The preamble to the Constitution recognizes these rights and liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, and equality of status, of opportunity. Constitutional morality is the guarantee which seeks that all inequality is eliminated from social structure and each individual is assured of the means for defense of rights guaranteed. Constitutional morality leans towards making Indian democracy vibrant by infusing a system of brotherhood. That is, my lord, your lordships are now talking about fraternity. This brotherhood takes you back to the principle and phrase fraternity, my lord, in the preamble. Brotherhood comes from fraternity. There is no other phrase of brotherhood in the Constitution. Your lordship may only note, fraternity comes, my lord, fraternity and brotherhood is the meaning of one or the other and is relatable to the Constitution. Class, race, or brotherhood among a heterogeneous population belonging to different classes, races, religion, culture, caste and section. Constitutional morality cannot, however, be nurtured unless as recognized by the preamble. So, my lord, emphasis on the preamble, which became a part, my lord, was declared as a part of the Constitution. There exists fraternity which assures and maintains the dignity of each Indian. Then, my lord, Dr. Ambedkar's decision fraternity. Kindly turn to 601. And as I said, my lord, when the Hindu Code came in 1950, Parliament was not ready. The Hindu Code, my lord, was not only Hindu Marriage Act. It had adoption, success, so many things, my lord. So, my lord, it's not accepted. And Dr. Ambedkar had to resign. Then it came, my lord, in a truncated form. First, my lord, this Hindu Marriage Act, then Succession Act, and the adoption, guardianship, all that, my lord, came separately, not as a part of the Hindu Code bill. So the import is, what was not accepted in 1950 was accepted by Parliament in 56, 58, etc. when it went on. And then became the norm of society. Nobody says today that there is some error in the Hindu Marriage Act. Prior to, my lord, the Hindu Marriage Act, one could marry, my lord, 3 times. A Hindu could marry, have 3 wives. That became, my lord, an anathema when India progressed to the Hindu Marriage Act. That was the law prevailing from the times of the Mughals, the British. So we brought in a new social order. Sorry.
This is the double-edged sword. Because then the argument of the other side is let the parliament do it. And
it's all right, but society changes. But point is, Milad. Sometimes, as I said, Milad, the law takes the lead. Sometimes society takes the lead.
Mr. Rohtgi, your broad argument there would be that we are talking of constitutional morality. When somebody performs it, that is also constitutional.
That's right. I'm grateful. And Milad, the simple answer is this, to this query being raised again and again. The power, jurisdiction, obligation and responsibility of this court, Milad, which is cast on this court under the Constitution, is only cast on this court. Even the High Court doesn't have that power. Only this court, as the final protector of fundamental rights and the final arbiter of what the law is and what the Constitution is. 32 is itself a fundamental right. If, my lord, I have a right, and that right is not being, my lord, given its full play, is being clouded or shrouded in some form by the majority, and if I may say so, by the state accepting the majority as correct, I have a right to come to this court, and this court will fail in its duty under the Constitution if, my lord, it does not remedy my right. Say, no, I can't do anything, you wait for Parliament. My lord, there can't be a mandamus to Parliament. I have no voice in Parliament. I have a voice to come to, my lord, open the doors of this court and come here and plead before your lordships. None of us have a right to go anywhere else. Except to, oh, you are a representative in Parliament, you go to your MLA, you tell your MLA, MLA will go there. That's not an answer, my lord, to the Constitution.
the constitutional touchstone only.
I am grateful. That's, my lord, where it stands. And, my lord, this argument has been raised in other cases also. Oh, only 10 or 20 people are affected. Thousands have accepted. Take, my lord, some resolution or some decision of a government. Your lordships have always, my lord, struck down the argument. If one man is affected, he has a right to say that he is affected. If his grievance is valid, then the court will act on it. And that this 100, 200 business was one of the foundations, my lord, in Kaushal. Your lordship may note that. That judgment, my lord, which overruled Nas of this court, which was overruled in Navtej and Puttaswamy, that judgment said, oh, you are a small minority, you are piffling minority, and 200 prosecutions, what's a big deal? In a country of 100 crore, this is minuscule. So, my lord, something like de minimis. Your lordships have a principle of de minimis. If it is so, my lord, inconsequential, the court may not act. Yeah. That judgment was founded, my lord, on de minimis. The point is, if one man's fundamental right, my lord, is affected, he has a right to come. And that judgment, therefore, was completely wrong in applying a principle of de minimis on the violation of a fundamental right. Lord, in Shafin Jahan, there is a passage, Lordship Justice Chandrachud, reminding the High